Welcome back. Well, time to get Mr. Moyosore Onigbanjo. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria. He will be also speaking about this national conference. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Interestingly, we hear comments coming through from some delegates about expectations on new constitution, what should they amend, how they should go about it. But one thorny thing is they can't seem to agree on some of those key areas. I mean, Anki telling us this morning that difficult to agree on some of the key areas, and on the back of the fact that they couldn't agree, how should they vote? Is it 75% or a simple majority? Eventually, they settle for 70%. So one then wondered at the time, was that just setting the scene for what's to come? And here we are at the committee levels, deadlocked in some cases.
Well, it's to be expected because the nature of the issues are so protracted that nobody should expect a tea party at the conference. The dividing lines and the cracks in the national firmament are so wide now that it's an Herculean task. I don't envy them at all because when you even watch their proceedings, you see how tempers flare. You see people, they're there to discuss national issues, but you see them descending to personal issues, calling each other names. Like I was reading some saying, oh, if I had been a professor, I would have been a better professor than you, and all those kind of things. It's not going to be easy, but I believe that in the old bunch, people with vision have to stand out. The deal makers have to stand out. People with a vision for where the nation should be should, drive consensus because that's the only way. If we want to leave it to voting, I doubt very much they would achieve anything, as is evident now. It has to be by consensus. The one of the best constitutional conferences that the nation ever held, the one that led to the 1979 Constitution, tempers were flared, but at the end of the day, certain people, Chief F.R.A. Williams then and some other people, sat together and agreed, in closet before coming out to the entire session, that, okay, look, on these issues, this is we give and take. And I believe if they don't do that here and they just go to plenary or they go to the committees without having tried to reach a compromise on those issues first, and they just leave it out there, I doubt if they would achieve it.
Would that compromise, based on the example you gave now, do you think it would be individuals, as in pairs, probably sitting down to have a conversation one-on-one, let's agree on this, let's work on this? Is that what it will go?
Well, it will start on an individual basis. For if I represent an interest at the confab, I know you represent an interest, and I see you as a reasonable, fair-minded person. I can always call on you and say, look, on this point, for the sake of the nation, I think this is the way we go. I'm trying to build a consensus. Will you like to join this group? And, I mean, you could agree, swing other people along so that by the time it is presented at either the committee or the plenary level, we have a number of people who are bought into the idea. But if everybody sits in their tent or in their camp and says, oh, only it's either my way or the highway, then...
If I'm coming, sorry to cut you, that sake of the nation, do you think that that's what's driving those at the conference right now? That desire to see the nation move forward? Because before we came on, we were talking about that recurring decimal, north, south, east, west,
yes.
Christian, Muslim. Is that for the good of the nation?
You see, the ethnicity, tribe, religion, they've gone to the fore. And they seem to be the parameters that certain people are there to protect my ethnic interest, to protect my tribe, to protect my region, to protect my religion. But they forget that, if there is no country, if we don't have a country, if we don't have law and order in Nigeria, all those things will soon fall to pieces. So, yes, you can see people going there saying the North will walk out, the South will not agree, the Southwest will not do this. But I believe without compromise, without talking to each other, it's not going to be easy.
But are we papering over cracks then if we don't bring those issues to the fore while still keeping tabs on the issues? Because if that's our makeup, we should highlight them.
Yes, we should highlight them, but we should know that firstly, there has to be a nation before I can be from Lagos State, before I can say I'm from the Northeast. If the nation, if there's a civil war, for example, so how am I going to come out and say, oh, I'm from Lagos State? Then nobody thrives. So we all have to subsume, I'm a Yoruba man, but I have to subsume my tribe for the good of the nation. I have to say, look, rather than this being in the interest of just Yoruba people, why don't I say, is this in the interest of the nation? Because the good of the nation is the good of all. And that's the way we can accommodate everybody. But you cannot say that what is good for you alone as a Fulani or Hausa man, you have to force it on other people. Or what is good for me as a Yoruba man must be what the Igbo man, the Ibibio man, the Tiv man must swallow.
Do you think that's what will play out if they all go there with their prejudices or conceptions?
Definitely we can see it from the way they're squabbling and fighting. Tribe or nothing, it's my way or nothing.
One of the things that also came to the fore is, I was just talking to my colleagues about the balancing act issue, because if you listen to the comments of the delegates, we're talking about how the South wants this, the North wants that. So there seems to be a huge divide. And it would seem that one of the things for their committee in particular, devolution of powers, is first of all, if they've agreed, if both sides agree on what the definition of federalism is. Do you think that there is one definition of that word?
I don't think so. There is what we can say is commonly agreed as the ideal of federalism, which is that, every unit should be virtually autonomous. Should i.e. have its own judiciary, have its own police, have its own functions, so that you reserve only the issues of maybe external affairs and defense to the center. But, I don't also believe that we can just translate or import a principle, hook, line, and sinker, without adapting it to our own local circumstances. Because it works very well for Mr. A, does not necessarily mean it's going to work the same way for me. So we just need to adjust it. Like she rightly said, if a state doesn't want state police, then so be it. But you don't ram it down their throat that you must have state police. If they don't want it, they don't want it.
One of the things we also seem to be asking them is to learn the workings of the National Assembly in terms of lobbying, cajoling, achieving consensus. Do you think that these are all things that can be done in the 3 months that they have?
It has to be done. They have no choice. Really, even in the most developed nations, laws are not passed. Even the most, what would I call it, the best intentioned laws are not a given. So you don't say because this law, I'm going to pass it, is for the benefit of mankind as a whole, then the legislature has to do your bidding. No, you go individually. That's why you see in the United States, President Obama will call up legislators and invite them over for dinner, invite them over for lunch, invite them over to the White House talk to them one-on-one, talk to their caucuses. He will send his top aides after them to convince them to vote along the legislation he wants to pass. It is no giving. You just don't think because I want to do this.
There's a certain art to it.
Yes, you just don't think, oh, because I want to do this, then the three of you have to buy into it. No, I have to persuade you. The South, they have to persuade other regions why, what do you call it, derivation must go beyond 13%. It's not just to come there and say, no, derivation must now be X%.
Do you see that happening with tempers flaring?
Definitely it will happen because you see, there are people who like to play to the grandstand. There are people who love the lights of the camera, and for whatever reason, they like to raise temperatures. But there are also level-minded people there who, behind closed doors, when the press is out, when there is no publicity to be gained, they're going to tell them, they sit down and say, look, come, sit down, my brother. This is how we need to do this thing. It's give or take. We want 20%. Okay, you can't give us 20%. What can you give us?